Good afternoon and welcome to our special school board meeting of June 1st. If you would all rise for a moment of silence and the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. First, I'd like to let you know that Miss Brandyberg is on a scheduled vacation, that's why she's not with us today. Also, if there's anyone out there that would like public input, I only have one card, and when Mr. Tibbetts gets through, there won't be any more if you haven't already turned one in. So, Mr. Tibbetts.
You want me here or over there?
Right there, sir.
Madam Chairman and board members, I wish to address the first topic on today's agenda, a motion asking you to approve a settlement agreement as reported in today's Orlando Sentinel, and the presumption that you will approve this deal the attorneys have made, a presumption I make based upon the second topic of the agenda. I would ask if each of you has had the opportunity to exercise the due diligence in reviewing the facts, transcripts, details that are the basis for this settlement agreement that is being presented to you. If you have not had this opportunity to perform this due diligence, then this matter needs to be tabled, because you certainly cannot be expected to make a decision without the necessary information. The answers to questions you need to ask cannot be addressed today in an open meeting due to the confidential nature of this matter and the need to protect the privacy of all those involved. Only when you have conducted your due diligence in a closed session can you then be expected to determine whether you should consider this settlement agreement. At that time, you would need to determine if you concur with the judge's ruling that the staff decision was wrong. If so, approve the settlement. $60,000 is a small price to pay, and deal with the mistakes that were made later. If this is not your conclusion and you think the staff was correct, you need to support them by rejecting this agreement and appealing the judge's rulings. Let me conclude by sharing a story with you. Years ago, while visiting friends, they had to leave their house for a meeting and asked me to watch over their 3-year-old. And only a short time later, he was into something that gave me occasion to say, "Stop that." He turned to me and said, "You are not the boss of me." Well, I want to remind you that the 4 of you and the missing member collectively are the boss. You are in charge. You have been elected by the voters to be in charge. It is your collective wisdom that we rely upon to ensure the best for our schools. Let no one presume to tell you what to do. The 5 of you are ultimately in charge. Any settlement agreements made with you as a board are made with you as a board, not the superintendent, not your attorney, not the electorate. You and you alone should determine the answers you need to fulfill your responsibilities in upholding the trust we have given to you. I applaud you for your service, appreciate your time, and thank you for the opportunity to speak to you today. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Tibbetts. Okay, our first item is an actionable item. It's 3.01. It is the approval of the settlement agreement in the matter of John Anselmo. Dr. Moxley?
Yes, school board members, the settlement agreement that you have before you has been thoroughly vetted and worked with our attorneys, and it includes any and all back pay that is owed to this employee in accordance with the recommended final order. It is in the best interest of the Lake County School District students and staff that I recommend approval of the settlement agreement in this matter.
You have heard the superintendent's recommendation. Is there a motion? No motion. Discussion? You have to do something. Okay. Stephanie, is there anything that you would like to go over in the settlement agreement, or?
I think just briefly, the total amount encompasses the prior back pay and benefits for the entire year that he was not working, and that's what's been in the recommended order by the judge. So I just want to make that clear, that the substantial.
Can't hear, but
I'm sorry, the substantial portion of the settlement funds is actually allocated to the back pay and benefits that the judge has already determined that the school board is recommending that the school board reimburse Mr. Anselmo for that amount.
Okay.
May I ask a question?
Yes, please.
It is a recommended amount, is that correct? So if we decide that we don't want the settlement and that we don't want them back, then we would litigate the recommendation for the back pay?
The
Could-
back pay is.
Yes. If you decided not to have the settlement today, then it will come back to you, and Mr. Gresta would be representing you at that at a formal hearing on the recommended order, and then you have two options, well, actually three. One, to pass that recommended order as it stands. Two is to not pass the recommended order, any other order. Three is to pass an order, a final order that does something differently than the recommended order. And if that was appealed, then you'd have to defend that on appeal.
Can I, Mr. Gresta sent us an email today that spoke about the changes, but within that chain of emails at the bottom, there was something that described why the judge ruled the way that they ruled, and it was something in regards to the way that we had disciplined. He had already been disciplined for one matter, and so we could not. Can you explain that?
Yes, ma'am, thank you. My name is Suzanne DeGresta, and I've been with you on a couple of prior occasions to assist you as you sit in your role as a hearing officer for personnel matters, okay? So think of yourself as the judge at this moment. The second item on your agenda is to talk about a final order, but let's just jump ahead a little bit and then perhaps come back to your first agenda item. In the final order, you would be asked to review the recommended order of the hearing officer, who is someone that was assigned by the Division of Administrative Hearings to hear the witnesses and review exhibits or the facts of the case. And when looking at that recommended order, it was many pages, but in that recommended order, there were facts found. Essentially, the hearing officer listened to witnesses and reviewed evidence and determined that Mr. Anselmo had been disciplined for behavior. And the hearing officer then determined from those facts that it was improper to then go back and discipline Mr. Anselmo a second time for the same sets of behavior. So that was contained in the recommended order. And that is one of the facts and one of the conclusions you would then need to deal with as a judge, as a hearing officer, to enter a final order. Alternatively, what is being recommended is to resolve that issue today with your agenda item number 1. And if you approve that agenda item number 1, then your agenda item number 2 would essentially be to enter an order accepting the settlement and closing the case. So I don't want to get too far into agenda item number 2 until we get a clear understanding of what you'd like to do with agenda item number 1. We can either do what is being recommended on your agenda, whatever you would like to approve by the board, or if you don't wish to approve this, then we need to actually do a separate procedure to adopt a final order and deal with all the procedural items that we need to deal with in adopting a final order from that recommended order.
Did that make it clearer for you?
Good. So it's a recommended order from,
Yes, ma'am. The Division of Administrative Hearings has recommendation authority. And then this board has the authority to enter a final order. But with that said, let me give you some restrictions. You don't have unbridled authority to enter a final order. What the law tells us, the Administrative Procedures Act, when a school board or any local government is dealing with a recommended order, you have very little discretion with regard to the findings of fact. If the hearing officer determined the light was green, as an example, you as a final hearing officer can't come in and say, no, the light was red, unless all the evidence in the hearing transcript said the light is red. Then you can say that was just a mistake, it was a typo, and you can fix that. But if the recommended order says the light was green, the evidence says it was green, you can't change that fact in your final order. Okay, so that's a restriction, if you will, on what your authority is. With regard to conclusions, which is also a part of the recommended order, you have a little more discretion with regard to conclusions in order to change a conclusion from a fact. But in order to do that, you as a hearing body will review the entire transcript and all the exhibits, and then cite to what you see in that record that changes that conclusion. For instance, if the recommended order interprets a school board policy, and you look at that conclusion by the hearing officer and you say, for the past 50 years, we've interpreted this school board policy to say this, and the hearing officer simply misconstrued it, you can change that conclusion of the hearing officer, simply misconstruing your internal workings or your internal rules or how you interpret things. Okay, so you have a little more discretion, but again, it's not unbridled discretion with regard to the entry of the final order on conclusions. And then the third piece I will tell you is there's always a recommendation in a recommended order. And that's kind of like, this is what we want the school board or the local government to do. You do have some discretion to revise that recommendation. But again, what the law tells us is you have to have reviewed the entire record and then cite back to the portions of the record that you feel support either increasing or decreasing or changing completely that recommendation from the hearing officer. So yes, it's a recommended order. You do have some authority to revise it, enter something different. However, it's not unbridled discretion to change everything. There are parameters placed around your authority.
Thank you very much. Comments, questions? Go ahead.
I've got another question. And I'm not sure how much we're supposed to relate to this, but on page 19, item 41. Is it unusual?
And here you,
I was trying to keep silent. That was on purpose. No, just kidding. Item 41. Is it against our policy that if you have reprimanded someone, that you then couldn't come back and terminate them? Since that's one of the issues, as a matter of fact, that were raised. So if I give you a letter, in my world, if I give someone a letter of a reprimand, then and something may come to light, it may be based on that same action, but I would terminate them. Is that not reasonable? Because that was one of the facts of the reason the hearing officer wanted to overturn it.
Okay, Stephanie, is that or Mr. Johnson? Which one?
I'm gonna let Stephanie answer that because I haven't read through the whole.
With respect to the policy, what the judge had a problem with is that there were 3 incidents, and instead of terminating Mr. Anselmo at that point, he was disciplined. And then several months later, after being sent for fit for duty, that's when the recommendation for termination was sent forth. And the problem that the judge had with that was that the acts that he had already been disciplined for were also the same acts that the school board, in its letter recommending termination, told the judge were the reasons for disciplining him. So it was almost like the double jeopardy type of thing that we hear in criminal law. That was the problem with the policy. I mean, the policy, usually when we discipline someone, we discipline them, and that's the end of it. And you make that recommendation and that decision at that time. And this was something that happened a little bit later in accordance with a different policy, which was the fit for duty policy. And that being said, after the Mr. Anselmo was sent for the fit for duty, the hearing officer further indicated that part of the basis for his decision was that he did not accept the physician's report as credible as the medical evidence that was presented by Mr. Anselmo at the hearing. So it's sort of a two-prong reason, if you will, according to the judge who entered the recommended order.
Okay.
Mark, do you have any comments or questions? No? Stephanie?
It was the same type of question with the policy in regards to looking at policy. It seems to me that if you have done something and you were disciplined for it and then you did something else, that of course you're going to say, well, they've already done this, this, and this. And so that would lead up to terminating an employee. That was where my confusion lied as well, as if it's a misconstruing policy and we can change that conclusion. But you're saying that's,
There was not.
It's not.
There was not a further incident, factual incident, that he had not already been disciplined for.
It was the fit for duty that came afterwards, and then it came back to those 3 incidents.
Correct.
Which wouldn't one have an effect on the other if, from the fit for duty?
I believe the purpose of them was to reflect the reasons for non-fitness for duty at the time, given the medical report that was received.
And when you read the conclusions there, it was clear that at least who, I guess we sent him to, didn't feel like he was fit.
Right.
Correct, and that's the second prong that I was discussing. We definitely had the authority under our policy to send him for a fit for duty, and I don't think that the judge questioned that in his rulings. But what he did indicate was that he did not find the expert testimony of the physician who reviewed Mr. Anselmo's file and had a visit with Mr. Anselmo. He did not find that as persuasive as the medical evidence regarding his psychological fit for duty from another physician who testified also at the hearing.
I'm going to let the attorney, would you pull that mic over to you, please?
Yes, and I want to correct you. I'm not an attorney. I'm a qualified representative.
Okay.
I apologize for,
Okay.
I don't apologize for being a qualified.
If you tell us who you are.
I'm Jamison Jessup. I am a qualified representative that represents Mr. Anselmo. My concern is, while I'm hearing a lot of good advice from the attorneys, my concern it becomes that a lot of the discussions, and I'm almost at a point where I hate to say anything because you're having real good discussion, and the problem is I want to make sure that my client's going to be able to be heard in a hearing, and you're already doing some of the hearing matters right now. You're already talking about the merits of the hearing that would be found in the item number 2. So I'm somewhat concerned that I'll be able to speak to that if I still need to after you deal with item number 1. I just want to make sure I reserve that right to speak later.
Mr. Grasso.
And school board members, you certainly have the right to discuss, especially when 2 items are related to each other. Sometimes our discussion intertwines, and that's certainly perfectly appropriate. As long as you take action on each item individually, you will be fine procedurally. Thank you.
And I was just merely trying to get to the facts.
And
That's all.
I guess all I was really doing is reserving my right to speak to the issue when it's appropriate for me to speak to the issue.
Yes, sir.
But I don't want to interfere with any of the settlement discussion because we've already had our internal discussion on our
That's
side.
how it got to us.
You guys have to kind of do it out in the open.
Right, yes, we do.
And so I can appreciate that. Thank
Okay.
you.
Thank you. Okay, we're at a standstill because the superintendent has recommended the settlement agreement. We can pass it, deny it, go through a whole trial ourselves.
If we're looking for a motion in order for us to take action, because sitting here and not doing anything isn't appropriate,
Thank you.
then I'm willing to make a motion that we approve the superintendent's recommendation.
Okay, we have a motion to approve the superintendent's recommendation. Is there a second? Second it for discussion, someone?
Okay, second.
Thank you. Yes, ma'am.
I think what I'm concerned about is if we agree, I'm a little bit confused, and maybe this is my first time, but we agree with the settlement, we approve the settlement, and then we go to the second part, and then now we get to hear what these people are saying in regards to the case, and what if that changes your mind? No. Okay, well, he was saying like we want to hear his client. What is he referring
If
to?
it was going a different direction than is recommended, he wanted to be able to say.
Gotcha. Okay.
If we denied the settlement, he wanted to be able to speak.
And I apologize, but I didn't want to interrupt with your settlement discussion. I
I'm
just
not the
wanted to
lawyer, but I
reserve my
assume
right.
that's correct. Yes, yes, okay. Law degree, yeah. Okay, any other questions? Okay, we have a motion and a second to, yes, sir, absolutely, you're the attorney.
We represented, well, today, you have other representation for this item, but we did represent
You
the
need the mic.
superintendent. And I have spoken to some of you all about these topics. I mean, it's very difficult. I welcome the opportunity to speak in this meeting because when speaking to you individually, I always have to take into consideration, as I told all of you, that I can't really talk about the item related to the merits of the case because you're sitting as a judge in that, so I'm prohibited from talking to you about that. But today, for the purposes of the settlement, I'd like to share what our thoughts were as far as accepting the settlement. Forget everything else. And you're here today. If you don't settle the case, then I don't believe you're in a position to enter a final order. It'll come back to you, and you will have a hearing on any exceptions that were made to the recommended order, and then you'll discuss all the items of the recommended order and something you feel differently or not based upon your review of the transcript. I mean, the way we looked at it was that I believe if you change any of that, then Mr. Jessup and his client are going to appeal that change. I mean, it would be unusual for a recommended order that comes from a doing officer when the agency changed it for the employee not to appeal it. So I have to assume that would happen. If we're looking at this, and you'll notice there are some specific things that this particular employee was charged with, and he was moved in a couple of occasions relating to those issues, and those issues create a concern for the superintendent. We went back and calculated of the $60,000 as part of the settlement agreement, $45,000 of that is back pay to the employee based upon of course, the recommended order, but any award of back pay would be for the time that he was under suspension pending this hearing, and that's $45,000, approximately, I think. So what we're really looking at for this, if you assume that at some point in time he gets his back pay, even if he's reinstated by you or an appellate court in some different position or under some different condition, he gets his back pay, that's $45,000. And then what we're really looking at is for settlement purposes, you're paying $15,000 settlement. What are you paying $15,000 for? You're paying $15,000 that this particular employee resigns and does not reapply for work, and any future issue that you may have regarding any of the conduct that led to us being here today is done and over with. We can't defend an appeal for under $15,000. It will cost us more to do that, win, lose, or draw. Even if we were to win, would cost you more than $15,000. So from purely a business standpoint, and over the years we've had to make purely business decisions about these issues, from a purely business standpoint, it would seem to me that the settlement would be the prudent thing to do to resolve it. I understand that some of you may have some personal feelings about the issues or some general business reasons why things are done differently in school districts than they are in private industry. Well, yes, that's true, but the settlement seems to be the appropriate thing that we can recommend as far as doing it, and we don't recommend it lightly. We recommend it because we think it is the best deal, and we'd rather you pay the lower amount and not have to pay us 2 or 3 times that amount later on.
Thank you, Mr. Johnson. We have a motion and a second on the floor. All in favor? Aye.
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 Thank you very much. Okay. Ms. DeGresta.
Yes, thank you, school board members. Moving on to the second item on your agenda is a proposed agreed final order. And procedurally, you may recall about a week ago when you received the first kind of version of your agenda, there was an agreed final order included with that. And then I believe this morning, you were provided with a second version. And let me explain the differences, if you please. After carefully reviewing the settlement agreement, there was some language included in that document which you just approved, which I wanted to be sure was incorporated into the concept of your agreed final order. So if you look at the second version of your agreed final order, the first page and couple of paragraphs basically takes care of some housekeeping issues with regard to the matter. And then on the second page of the agreed final order, you'll see where the changes came into play. I incorporated into the agreed final order the language that's contained, or the concept contained in the settlement agreement, which indicates Mr. Anselmo will be dismissing or withdrawing, essentially, his administrative proceeding against the superintendent and school district. So I incorporated that language into the final order. And then based upon that withdrawal of the claim or dismissal of the claim, there's no claim for you to take action on, and so essentially you will be dismissing the case or closing out the case as the judge. So the second version, God bless you, of the agreed final order is what I am recommending for your action this afternoon. And in a small response to the gentleman who spoke during your public comment, where there was an indication that perhaps it was a done deal already because of the version of the final order in your agenda, what I like to do, and what many lawyers like to do, is to put something out there as a proposed document for the purpose of allowing the board members to get the discussion rolling. Not that you're going to accept every word that I propose or every concept that I propose, but it at least allows you to get the discussion going, and then we can move from there with any revisions that you would like. But version number 2 of the agreed final order is my recommendation for your approval. And you'll be sitting in a quasi-judicial capacity, not as a board member, but as the judge, if you will. So we must really remain focused on the facts of this case, not allow yourselves to be swayed by any outside information that may have been provided, either in a newspaper that was mentioned or other comments that you may have heard in the grocery store or at breakfast, this morning. Allow the decision to be made on the facts of this case as presented to you. Thank you.
I would like to, Mr. Jessup, you have a copy of this?
I do.
Okay. Do you have any concerns with it?
No, ma'am. I believe that everything that you've heard here today has been pretty dead on, spot on, and we agree with the agreed final order.
Okay, thank you very much. Do we vote on this one as well?
Yes,
Okay.
please, with a motion, a second, and then a vote.
Do I have a motion to approve the agreed final order?
So moved.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you very much. And thank you, Mr.
Thank you
Jessup.
very much.
And thank you.
Thank you. School board members, it was a pleasure seeing you.
Always good seeing you.
You can stay right up here and help us if you'd like.
I don't know anything about safe schools, I'm afraid.
Okay, we'll change around here.
Thank you, thank you very much. Nice seeing you too.
I'll just leave a vacant chair between you and I.
Vacant chair,
That's fine.
okay.
Yep, that's fine. Thank you, Stephanie. Stephanie. You give him a second to go out?
Yes, if we can have.
They're ready to come in. You want to go ahead and let them do that?
can.
Okay.
We're going to go ahead and do the presentation of Safe Routes to School from Pine Ridge Elementary School. We have our children coming
Come on
in.
in. Come on in.
Yeah.
Make yourself at home, right up here on the front. Want to go where the podium is? Don't hit him in the head. That scared me. Good afternoon. It's great to have all of you here.
Okay.
You look so happy. It's the last week of school.
Mrs. Majewski, I see you're here as the proud principal of Pine Ridge. We do have a microphone up here. If you would introduce your students and the teacher, we would like to go ahead and start the presentation.
Have a seat.
Absolutely. Thank you. Thank you so much. Does the sound okay? I think, probably the proudest principal in all of Lake County today, with very good reason. Thank you so much for inviting us to this meeting today. I have a fabulous team of teachers with me. Ms. Kryling is at the podium, and behind me, I have Miss Julie Green, Miss Jenny Carlson, Miss Amy Weber, and Miss Chelsea Gismondi is arriving very shortly from another area in the building with 2 more students. And this has just been a phenomenal project. I just came from another meeting of community stakeholders. So boys and girls, I have some really good updates to give you when we get back to school. We're going to be taking some more action with this. It just continues to grow, and I'm just so proud of everything that you've learned. And with that being said, I will turn it over to Ms. Kryling and let her give an overview.
Does this microphone work as well?
Yes.
Dr. Moxley and school board members, thank you so much for inviting us here today. Earlier this year, we were honored to share a project-based learning activity that centered on the abstract concepts involved in Celebrate Freedom Week, the Declaration of Independence and the beginnings of our nation with you. So we are glad that you're already aware that we are using project-based learning at Pine Ridge Elementary School to such good effect. At Pine Ridge, we've been using PBLs, which is the acronym for the project-based learning, for about 2 years in our curriculum, and we have found this teaching method to be really the most engaging way to teach the standards by allowing the children to collaborate, do research, express their opinions, problem solve, and present conclusions in forms that they deem appropriate. In my own class, whenever we say that we're going to be doing a PBL, it's all right, another project-based learning activity. And then when that activity is through, do we have to stop learning this way? Can't we leave our textbooks and go back to learning the other way, which is the project-based learning? Most of our PBLs have indeed been project-based learning activities. However, when we realize that we have a true real-world problem at Pine Ridge that affects not only the students that go to school there, but also the surrounding community, we realized that it was really time to augment this project-based learning and turn it into true problem-based learning. And true problem-based learning involves a real-world project that it has a real-world problem. I was hoping that we might have this PowerPoint available.
We do.
Oh, thank you. Actually, it's the other one. Thank you. Thank you so much. So our project is called the SAFE PBL, and it stands for Safe Access for Everyone, because the real-world problem that is occurring at our school is the fact that we have, well, I'll let you go ahead and if you, or advance one slide there. There, it's the project that we're telling you about today is driven by this question. How can we make it possible for students living in the walk zone to safely walk or drive or ride their bikes to Pine Ridge Elementary School? At Pine Ridge, we have 10 neighborhoods that are within a half-mile radius of the school. Yet we have only about 20 students that walk to school and no students that have ever ridden a bike there. Within the 2-mile radius that is determined to be the walk zone, we have, most of our students live within that radius, yet still we only have 20 kids that walk to school there. About 3 years ago, there was a safe access study done by the Lake Sumter Metropolitan Planning Organization, which has not yielded any results so far to help us with this very real-world problem. So we thought, why not give this problem to the students? They've excelled so far in project-based learning. Let's see what they can do with problem-based learning. So let me just give you a quick little overview on how this project evolved. First, we gave the students this driving question, and then as the entry event, we took them on a walking field trip, as if they were students that were going to walk or bike to Pine Ridge. Out along County Road 561, up to the intersection of 561 and Log House Road and Pine Island Road, and that is northward, and then southward down to where the last neighborhoods are that abut the school that are within that half-mile radius. And the children will let you know that they learned a lot from that walking field trip and what it would be like to walk to school using the current conditions that we have at Pine Ridge. After the walking field trip, we created an online survey and surveyed the entire student body, as well as the families at Pine Ridge, the parents, and the stakeholders in the surrounding community. Then the students went back into their classrooms. They had collaborative discussions and created thinking maps where they identified the problems that they ascertained on that walking field trip. After that, we invited Mr. Mike Woods to come to Pine Ridge and actually answer the questions that the students had to pose so that they could move forward with their thinking about the problem that they were dealing with. After Mr. Woods answered their questions, and this is probably the most exciting part to me, students were allowed to choose one of 5 career groups to do their work in on this project. And these career groups are all STEM-based. So thereby we are combining STEM education, which we really want to augment at our school as well, with problem-based learning. The 5 groups that the students could choose from were the financial analysts, the architects, the engineers, the statisticians, and the environmental impact specialist. Those career focus groups tackled this problem from their real-world perspective that career field would deal with. They analyzed, researched, compiled their findings, and decided how they would present them to the Lake County Commissioners. The beauty and the value of problem-based learning like this is really in the process, though, and it is not whether that driving question actually has the positive goal that it actually is accomplished. The students who participate in a project like this become the leaders and the problem solvers of tomorrow. In all, there were 115 students who worked on this project. These students that we have here are here to present their career group's recommendations as they did for the commissioners. So now I'll turn it over to these bright young minds that are here to represent Pine Ridge Elementary School.
And there is one right there that should turn on and work.
And we're starting with the, the statisticians. So the statisticians can come right up. Open the letter here.
That way you can face everyone. Okay, who's talking first?
Can you do me a favor and let them tell us who they are?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay, so please say your name.
Hello, I am Lily Bedard. I'm Samantha Hudson. Sophia Bodo. Nia Di Benedettis.
She's just being Vanna.
Gabby McLeod. I would like to introduce our group. We are the statisticians. We studied and we analyzed the data from the survey given to parents and students on SurveyMonkey. The number one reason why students don't walk to school, according to the parents' survey, is it's too far or it's not safe. According to the data, only 3.2% of our population walk or bike to school. Of the parents surveyed that state the number one change they would like to see is at Pine Ridge Elementary would be sidewalks to keep the kids safe. 90% of the kids are car or bus because we have not put sidewalks in yet. According to the survey data, parents and students believe the current condition here at Pine Ridge Elementary is not safe to walk to school. On a parent survey, they suggested sidewalks, traffic lights, and a teacher on duty to help keep the kids be safe.
But most of all, they wanted sidewalks. For example, on a survey we had the parents take, 68% of them suggested sidewalks. 32% suggested other things. But on the other hand, 62% of the students would walk to school if there were sidewalks. In conclusion, Pine Ridge Elementary needs sidewalks for our walkers and bikers to be safe.
Very good.
Now we have the environmental impact specialist. And on the screen, as they're walking up, you'll see all the children that are represented by this group. There were 115 kids at all. They were from 4 fourth grade classes and 1 third grade class.
Hello, I'm April Schmidt.
I'm Megan Davies.
I'm Avery Kelly.
I'm Willie Torres. Good afternoon. We are the environmental group from Ms. Green's class. We learned a lot about how vehicles can contribute to acid rain, which produces air pollution. We feel one solution to this problem is people could start walking, carpooling, or riding their bikes to school to cut down on the amount of pollution released in the air. The problem is we need sidewalks to make this an amazing possibility.
Car pollution is considered by most people to be a decreasing problem, but actually it's increasing due to the large number of cars that are driven each day.
30,000 people in the United States each year die from conditions that are caused by exacerbated by car pollution.
There are 752 cars for every 1,000 people in the United States.
Car pollution has numerous effects, both physically and environmentally, like acid rain, smog, lung cancer, and respiratory problems.
The amount of car pollution that is released from cars is much more than the amount of pollution released by a nuclear power plant.
So as you can see, there is a great need to add sidewalks for our school. Please consider helping our school.
Next, we have the engineers. The engineers are a bit disappointed because we could not fit the scale model that they created onto the school bus to get here. We tried the best we could. All the doors were too small. So they had a 4x8 scale model that they were going to use as a part of their presentation. It was about as big as this table, so they'll just soldier forward without it.
It's tremendous. I was able to quickly get a picture sent to me, and I wish that we had it, that we could put out here, but I will. They did a great job engineering that.
No, honey, go over there, brother.
Future engineers.
Future engineers.
I love it.
I was wonderful. Get on that bus. That's
Sure.
great.
I'm Genesis Aviles.
I'm Julian Toledo.
I'm Natalia Cruz. I'm Jackson Kleinschmidt. The engineer group used satellite images from Google Earth of the school and the neighborhoods immediately surrounding it.
We made two-dimensional maps on grid paper using the scale on Google Earth. We then made a 3D model of the area. 1 unit on the grid paper equaled 1 inch on the model.
Our model shows the areas we consider to be the biggest problems for students who want to walk or ride a bike to Pine Ridge. Those areas are marked with red flags.
Problem number 1. There aren't any sidewalks near the school. Out of about 325 students that live in the walk zone, only about 20 are walkers. There are no bikers because there are no sidewalks. Students have to walk right next to the road.
Problem number 2. Students who walk from Barrington Estates, the big neighborhood next to the school, have to cross over the driveway where the buses are entering and leaving. They have to walk up a steep hill, and it is very hard for buses and teachers to see them.
Our car rider line is long, especially in the afternoon. Cars sit there running their engines for up to an hour before school gets out. It takes 30 to 45 minutes to load all the car riders each day.
The intersection near the school is dangerous. There are no crosswalks, no crossing guards, and no traffic light to help kids and parents cross the road.
When cars are going 55 miles per hour, it is scary to walk on the side of the road. We feel the speed limit could be lowered because of the schools in all the neighborhoods.
Problem number 6. The swale makes it almost impossible to walk on Pine Island Road. It is dangerous and would need to be filled in for students to walk there.
Because the school zone is so close to the school, drivers don't see it soon enough. If it started north of the intersection, cars would slow down sooner.
The sidewalk in front of Barrington Estates could be easily connected to a new sidewalk. That way kids would not slide down the hill next to the road.
A new neighborhood with 400 houses would mean lots of new traffic and more kids who cannot walk safely to school. We hope the new neighborhood will have to build sidewalks.
We are proud to help Pine Ridge become a true neighborhood school.
Next, we have the architect group.
Who usually disagree with the engineer, so I want to see how this works.
Be on your toes. You can put it on that table if you want, or you have to use it as you're describing it. Okay.
This is the architect group. My name is Alexis.
My name is Isabella Zeus.
My name is Enzo Van Skoik.
My name is Gabby McLeod. The architect group first made 2D drawings of models surrounding the school. Next, we made 3D models of the same areas. The first group had the intersection of County Road 561 and Log House Road to the right and Pine Island Road to the left. We added painted crosswalks, a crossing guard, and a signalized stoplight. We feel these added improvements will help to greatly increase student safety when needing to cross the intersection. The second group had the school property. We added gates that would allow students to go directly from the neighborhoods onto school property. This would allow students to get to the school without having to walk along busy roads. Although we know this responsibility for this would lie on HOAs of the neighborhoods and not on the county. We felt this was such a significant safety factor that it needed to be included in this presentation. The third group had the area south of Pine Ridge, reaching to the neighborhoods that are within walking distance. Directly to the south, when we walked this pathway, we saw there was already some sidewalks in place. But we added sidewalks here and there to create an unbroken cement path to school for these children. We also noticed a very large ditch between the current sidewalk and road. We felt there should be a fence in between the ditch and sidewalk for student safety. The fourth group had the area from the intersection along Pine Island Road. We added a sidewalk along the north and south sides of Pine Island Road so the children who lived in those neighborhoods can easily walk to school. Although there is no neighborhoods on the north side of Pine Island Road right now, we are being proactive and think about what the future might hold. Also, to successfully add a sidewalk on the south side of Pine Island Road, we had to figure out what to do with the large drainage ditch. Our solution was to put a drainage pipe along the current ditch and then fill the rest with cement, then placing the sidewalk over top. The fifth group had had along Log House Road from the intersection to the neighborhoods that are within walking distance to Pine Ridge. There are several neighborhoods in this area on both sides of Log House Road, so we added sidewalks to both the north and south sides of Log House Road. The sixth and final group had County Road 561 and the traffic that travels along it during school hours. We would like to see a lower speed limit of 45 miles per hour extending from just north of the intersection to the south of the property line of Pine Ridge. This would slow traffic down to a more reasonable speed before hitting the school zone. We would also like to expand the school zone to areas that extend beyond the school property line like it is now.
The final group is the financial analyst group.
My name is Kevin Decker. My name is Karina Guman.
My name is Megan Bedford.
My name is Juliana Hidon.
We are the financial group. My name is Karina, and this is Megan, Kevin, and Juliana. Our group took the changes made by the architect group and found the cost. We found out the prices of the signalized crosswalk, $35,000. Low speed limit signs, $2,000 each. Crosswalk, $2,000, $2,459. Brushed aluminum guardrail, $96,000, $100 per square foot. And sidewalk, $732,120. We went on Google Earth to calculate the sidewalk distance. We took these measurements and multiplied by 5 feet to get the area of the sidewalks. The sidewalks cost the most, $732,120, and the crosswalks cost the least, $2,469.08. The reason the sidewalks cost so much is because the cost includes bringing the construction equipment to the site, maintenance of traffic, grading the roadside, making the ground flat, concrete delivered, concrete poured, reinforced fiber for concrete, finishing concrete, sod around sidewalk, saw cut joints in the sidewalk, and yellow or red warning mats at the sidewalk ramps. We would all like to thank the people who are helping us to make this happen. Thank you.
Thank you for listening to our presentation today. Can you hear me? Yes, ma'am. Okay. We are very proud of these children. The kids put forth a lot of hard work in hopes of seeing changes so that their fellow classmates can walk or ride a bike to school safely. Our hope through participating in this PBL is that these improvements will happen all around Pine Ridge Elementary. But our hope reaches beyond just Pine Ridge. We want students all over Lake County to be safe when walking or riding a bike to school. Our hope is that because of our hard work and a commitment to do long-term planning with the cooperation between the county and other private entities, that every new school being built in Lake County, no matter where it's at, will have the basics of school safety, such as sidewalks, gates, crosswalks, and stoplights in place for students from day one. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else going to speak? No? Okay. Having been doing this for a long time, not necessarily here, but involved in development, your comments are spot on, and we didn't have to pay for them. And they were probably more accurate than some of them that we get from consultants we hire. I just want to applaud the great work that you've done, and I hope meeting with Commissioner Sullivan and with Commissioner Parks will help. This is a study that actually needs to go to Mr. Stivender in Public Works for the county to show him the numbers that you've come up with and how easy, it wasn't easy, but how diligent, you went through each step in order to get it done. And I think it's absolutely great that y'all did this. You did a great job.
You know, we attended the same meeting this afternoon. Did you want to share any of the?
She wants to tell her students first, I
Tell the
think.
students first.
I do. Well, we've got a few things that we can start putting in place and start looking at. So we will be talking about that. But I just, from that meeting, it was just so exciting to have so many different people at the
Let
table.
me put you on the mic.
Certainly. From the meeting. Is it working yet? From the meeting that we attended today, it was just so exciting to have so many different people from the community at the table supporting us and helping us. And really, it's all because of our students and the learning that they have acquired through this project, and the wheels are in motion. And the penny sales tax is the reason that the wheels are in motion so quickly for this. So we appreciate that. We just appreciate that things are going to come to fruition for our students soon. We are going to be looking at some short-term solutions, and we'll talk about that. But I want to continue to get our PTO and SAC and all our stakeholders involved in making some of those decisions at our school site. Anything to add from that? It was.
And that's what I was going to say. Some of these are fixes that can be done. They're not costly. It's just changing. The speed limit is one immediately. The board has to approve it. That's it. And then it can be put in place. And there's other ones on here. I mean, this is really good. There's other ones on here that can be put in place. So it's not the number, the monetary thing.
Thank you so much.
Anybody else?
Anybody else?
Thank you. I would like to make a comment. First of all, to our students, thank you so much for coming today to present to us and for your presentation to the Board of County Commissioners. That is very important for all of the adults to hear your voices and to hear your opinion and to see your faces. So thank you very much for being here. Thank you for your hard work in doing this project-based learning type of model to solve a real-world problem that is very important to all the students and the residents in the community that your school sits. So you have done something that is very helpful for many years to come. The project-based learning model is a very important one. I can tell that you really enjoyed doing that. I can tell that you learned a lot about it. And when we get reports from some of the consultants that Mrs. Stivender mentioned, those are the very topics and the very process that they have gone through to do this as adults in their careers. And you have done that at a very young age. As part of your learning, and very complete, very comprehensive, and I loved your models, I loved your visuals, your charts. You did reading, you did math, you did language, you did oral presentation, just phenomenal work. To our teachers that are here, thank you for stepping outside of the box and doing something different than what is a traditional way of learning. It's very meaningful to the students, it's meaningful to their parents, and it is definitely meaningful to us and the community members. So thank you for going above and beyond to make learning really happen and meaningful for our students. So thank you very much, and have a wonderful rest of the school week, and we're going to have a great week and close another school year successfully. So thank you very much. All right. And off they go, back to Pine Ridge.
Catch the bus now.
Thank you again. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, Dr.
Okay,
Moxley.
we're going to go back to action item 3.03. This is notification of administrative, instructional, and professional managerial transactions. This is for the 2015-16 school year. While it is a little different than my routine and how I bring things to you, I typically bring a list all at one time. Since this was a special meeting for other reasons, I decided to bring this list as part of it because we want to go ahead and make the transition for some job shadowing and some collaboration before we have some folks that will be retiring. It's very important that we capture the knowledge base and be able to transition that from one individual to another. So many times we don't have the luxury that the person is here today and then tomorrow they're gone and the new person comes in on that day and they don't ever have any overlap. And so we're very fortunate with being able to bring this today. So at this time, first of all, I'd like to recommend the administrative appointments for 4 administrators. Matthew Arnold as the principal for Mount Dora Middle School for the 15-16 school year. Melissa Desjardins, who will be filling in the supervisor of strategic initiatives following the retirement of Liz Hobart. Melissa is in the audience, and I know that you know her as a very accomplished principal in our district. Matthew Arnold, I did put a resume at your places, board members, just so you know, Mr. Arnold, going back there, he is coming new to our school district, and you will see that he is a very accomplished middle school principal in a surrounding district, and he has great experience and will be able to come in and fill the shoes that are being vacated by a retiring principal at Mount Dora Middle School, and that's Mr. Larry. Mr. Arnold will be introduced to that SAC this evening. The principal for Beverly Shores Elementary School, we have a retirement there. Kathy Tatro is retiring after many years of service to our district, and Monica Gordon is being recommended. Monica Gordon is the current assistant principal in our district and is a highly accomplished and has all her credentials ready to go. At Fruitland Park, following Melissa Desjardins, is Tammy Langley. She is credentialed with her principal credential and is ready to assume that role. So that is my recommendation for today.
You've heard the superintendent's recommendation. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, and thank you, Dr. Desjardins, for being here. I don't see any of our other principals today.
Okay.
All right, moving right along, we have our Innovation and Program Evaluation Report. Dr. Kathleen Gingras and Jeffrey Cooper is here. They're both here, and Perul is here as well. So we will move into that update.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Madam Chair, board members, Superintendent Moxley, and members of the audience. Through the Engage LCS process, the board and superintendent created the program innovation and evaluation system for the district and funded 2 positions to carry out this work. Today, we're pleased to provide a summary of the work that has been completed on this initiative thus far. In September, Jeff Cooper was hired as the specialist, and in October, Dr. Parul Acharya was hired as the analyst to carry out the work that was designed by the Engage LCS ROI and program evaluation teams. To conduct unbiased reviews of proposed innovations and existing high-profile programs, to provide the executive cabinet and the board with information with which to make sound decisions about fiscal investments that have the greatest positive impact on the district is the main duty of this team. In other words, to ensure that the district is achieving the greatest returns for its investments. It is the vision of this staff to transform the culture of the district, to ensure that every purchase is made with scrutiny to guarantee the best return for the investment. Establishing a system of operation and conducting program reviews on the Engage LCS priorities and Achieve 3000, PD 360, AVID, and the Pre-K2 reading programs were the focus of year 1. This is a new way of thinking for our district and school staff to consider all of the costs that are involved in implementing new and carrying out existing programs to then determine how much results are actually costing the district. This culture change also requires setting metrics to prior to investments and monitoring the implementation and the results of the investments. While the district created its own tool to measure the return on investment, we have also recently partnered with the Teachers College, Columbia University, to use a tool developed by their Center for Benefit Cost Studies of Education. And they developed this tool at about the same time our district was developing our tool. So we're very excited about the possibilities of working with Columbia University. I'm very personally excited about and proud to be a part of this initiative, and I'm really proud of the work that Mr. Cooper and Dr. Acharya have done thus far. And now I would like to turn the presentation over to Mr. Cooper so he can update the board on the work that has been completed to this date.
Thank you, Dr. Gingras, Dr. Moxley, board members. Good afternoon, everyone, the audience. I don't have any illustrations for you today. I'm sorry. I won't do it as well as the children will, but I certainly will try very hard. I also noticed that you don't have any of the color copies.
No.
And that was my only claim to fame here after the kids, was to make sure you had color copies of everything. If you don't have one, I would really like you to get one, because the way we put this together. Okay. I'll work from memory. The way we put this together. Oh, okay, yeah, there's one more. There's only 4 board members today. The way we put this together was to allow some coordination of colors so that you would all be able to identify certain things. So if I could please just tell you exactly how we put this together, and I think that would be to your advantage, and then you are welcome to peruse it and ask questions or whatever you would like to do after that. First, in keeping with what I promised you before, it's only 8 pages long. So it's not a very deep document or anything like that. It was really meant to give you an update. And I think the premise behind this was that, you know, what are you getting for your money so far? And that's what we tried to accomplish here, and include several different types of metrics so that you would know where we stand. Before I begin, I would like to thank Dr. Gingras. Liz Hobart was very instrumental in this, and that everybody in the district really did cooperate. This was really everybody who was charged with something from Engage LCS to the instructional priorities really worked well together, and I'm very thankful to every one of them. And I will also say one other thing before I begin, and that is this is a very fluid document. We had changes this week. So this is not something where we put it together and just put it along the shelf. Every single week we've had changes since I started putting this together back in the middle of April. So it's not, everybody's questioning it, everybody is looking at it, everybody is saying, does this work, does it not work? So I can promise you that that's what we've done so far, is really look at all these things and try and put something that's valuable to you. So without any other advanced information, just tell you that the 8 pages, basically on the first page, just gives you some information on how to read through this, which I will tell you that we thought was very important at first to identify all the key performance indicators, because that's where we're at. We're looking at key performance indicators and what these different instructional priorities will do for the district. In addition, we have a budget strategy, a budget items of all of the initiatives on the first page, so that you know exactly how much you're spending on each of the different programs. And then each page itself also has the budget from the current strategic financial plan. So if you turn to the page 3, you'll see there's ELL and struggling students, and you'll notice that if you had it in color, or I think you do have it in color now, you'll see that the 3 individual key performance indicators that we think are most appropriate to this particular instructional priority. And it tells you how much we're spending for fiscal year 15-16 on this instructional priority. You have all of the different targets, metrics that we're using to measure whether or not we are successful in this endeavor as well. And in this case, for ELL and struggling students, we think that the most important key performance indicators that are appropriate are number 2, number 7, and number 8. And that's how we basically put this together. Here are all the goals, and of course you are well aware that many of the goals are really set based on what we're going to find out when we get the first testing results done. But one of the things that I was really pressed about, I guess is maybe one word or one term to use, was that I don't want to wait a whole year before we find out whether or not we're doing good work, and I'm assuming that we're going to do good work. So I've tried to work, even though these look like long-term and annual goals, what I've done is met with each of these people individually and have figured out metrics along the way that we can use, the interim goals, that will help us identify whether we're on target or not. And I think that's a real important factor that I think, and there's way too much information to give you in a short update, but if you look at these goals, what we've tried to do, and when we do make reports on ELL and struggling students, and each of the different instructional priorities, you will see that there were metrics that we used that weren't even listed here, but we tried to use along the way to give the people who are implementing the programs the necessary guidance or help they need to find out, are we making a difference? Are we really doing good work? Or what do we need to change? How can we make it work if it's not working? And then report back to you on that type of result. So you have ELL and struggling students on page 3. And then you have, on the back of page 3, you have the metrics that we've worked on so far. And you can see the different metrics there and the things that the data that we've collected on page 4 for ELL and struggling students. I draw your attention to any particular one. They're all very important to us. You can see there are a lot of them. The number of English language learners, I mean, in our learning, and with Parul and I learning how to use Skyward, we've had some intensive training and we've done some really good work, and we're now able to calculate exactly how many ELL students we have on any given day. So that was a real important thing to find out, to know exactly at any time. We just run a report now, and that's a really good thing. So we have all kinds of things. Teacher assistant logs, that's one of the ways for all those teachers, the arts teachers that we hired, to find out how much time are they spending. And what we did was we created a pie chart. That's what you don't see. We created a pie chart that said how much time, and we got logs back from every teacher, and we said, okay, where are they spending the time? And so starting out this year, we're learning how to do this, and then we can take that pie chart and say, okay, you're spending 20% here and 40% here and 10% here. We need to get 80% in one place. And that's been very helpful, and that's the kind of learning that we're working on together. On the next page, which is page 5, you have the talent development pipeline. Now, of course, this had to do with paying the teachers and the union contract, so there was very little for us to really engage with that other than just get the information, find out what the metrics were going to be. And that's the other thing that we've been very careful about moving forward with from our perspective, and that is making sure of who's responsible for collecting the data, getting the data, and when it will be available. So that's another thing that we're real keen on getting done. The next, on the back of that, you can see how the money was distributed for the talent development pipeline. The next one is the teacher induction and coaching framework. And then on the back of that, you have many statistics on where we are at this point in time. Leadership advancement, I believe even the name has changed here on page 9. We even call it something different now. So we have some changes there, and as you can see, and in this case, what you see with the different color codes is you'll find out in year 1 we expect that the 2 orange items are the most appropriate KPIs. And then in year 2 you would have both the orange and the green, and then in year 3 you'd have all 10 items, or you'd see the blue items that would actually be most appropriate or most affected in the 3rd year. And of course, then you also have, I believe the Director of Leadership was just approved today. Is that correct?
No.
Or is that the wrong person?
That's a different position.
Okay, different, I'm sorry. Please forgive me. Okay, so then we have innovation and program evaluation. I would like to take a little bit of extra time on page 11. And that is our section and what we're trying to do. And as you know, I draw you to the front page. We think, although we don't directly affect a lot of the different areas, we hope that our work will affect almost all of the areas. And we hope to make that effect by doing these individual metrics in the interim as well as the long-term metrics in the end. Okay, we will be successful helping everybody in the district reach the goals that we want to reach. You can see that our budget from the Strategic Financial Plan, it is the executive sponsor. In our case, is the Executive Cabinet under the direction of Dr. Gingras. On the back side, I just draw your attention to that program evaluation. We've had a very we've had to learn our way around the district. I'm not a school educator by trade, so I had to learn a little bit about how to go about doing this. And so we really embarked on 7 evaluations at one time. And the reason for that was because everybody's so busy. And if I called you today and said, okay, I'd like to meet with you, and you'd look at your schedule and you'd say, well, I can meet with you next week. Well, what am I supposed to do between now and then? So the point is to do 7 at the same time and try and get all of them so that I can fill up my time and not waste a lot of time. So that's the point of trying to do 7 at one time. And so far we've been pretty successful about that. And we've had to learn along the way. And so our goals have been to use 3 of the 7 instructional priorities the first year, as well as the items, the issues identified in Gage Lake County Schools that I believe Dr. Gingers mentioned, and that is the AVID program, the PK2 reading programs, the Achieve 3000 program, and the PD360, which is now called Edivation, professional development program. So we've worked on that. We've just about finished our first evaluation that you will receive. It's the AVID program. That's the one we've completed so far. We've done a lot of work with PK2 and Achieve 3000, as well as PD360. And I believe PD360 came up in front of you in December and will come up before you shortly. And we're trying to work with those people to figure out what we need to do rather than go through a very deep evaluation, since we were kind of pressed for time on that. But that's basically what we've been working on, and hopefully you'll appreciate it. I can tell you, in keeping with my promise, the executive summary of the AVID program is 3 pages long, but the whole evaluation is 57 pages, because all of the metrics, which will give you an idea of how we're going forward, and you'll see all the different metrics that we've tried to impose on ourselves to find out how well we're doing and where we're going with these programs. So I feel very comfortable about that. Unfortunately, it is very cumbersome, but we've been able to work with Skyward and all the other programs and all the people within the program to help us give you something that's going to be very helpful, I think, going forward. And we hope to have that for you within the next month or so. And then if you want to ask, go ahead.
About the section here. I have a question about one of these goals here. There's a goal of cost savings as a result of program evaluations that continuously increases. So
Yes, sir.
You're hoping to save money as you go through the ROI process on each of these. But in order for you to save money, do you have to determine that a program is ineffective or something needs to be cut, or that we get a better price on that program, or?
It could be any of those things. For example, I know that we've worked with some of the people in some of the programs already, and we've been able to save money by identifying metrics that were never there. In other words, I guess I could give you as an example on the Rosetta Stone, for example, or for Achieve 3000 even. We've looked at how many actual licenses we have and how they're being used. So, for example, if we had, the way they designed the contract was that each middle school gets 125 licenses or 150 licenses, and each high school got 250 licenses. So the key would be is if we restructure that to where the product is being used, we can actually save $8,000 a year. That's one way. Rosetta Stone, making sure that the licenses that we purchase are actually being used. That's another way we do it. We get the information and figure out how they can look at it on a continuous basis so that they know if somebody isn't using it, why aren't they using it? Do they need to use it? And if they're not using it, let's give it to somebody who needs it, so that we're making the most of our 600 licenses. Even though we have 1,900 ELL students, we only have 600 licenses. We need to make the most of those licenses. So there's savings to be gained in efficiency, and it may even be at some point in time where we save on contract. I think we were instrumental in saving some money with the PD360 in last year. In December, when we worked on that. We were part of the team. I wouldn't say that we did it by ourselves, but we were certainly part of the team, so we saved money in that way. And then, of course, if the program's not working and our recommendation comes forward to do away with the program, there's savings going to be that way, too.
To answer your questions?
Well, yeah, I think so. And I guess where I'm going with that is, wouldn't it be more advantageous if we caught this on the front end every time a contract was renewed, and then it gets fixed then, as opposed to having to trickle its way through an RRI process where
You're absolutely
saving money
right.
when we should have really just made the better decision up front.
And I forgot to tell you that they put me on the software committee. So that's one of the things that I've tried to do on the software committee. Dr. Wheeler has been very nice to me and has invited me to the meetings, and I'm trying to impart some of my knowledge as far as contract management and contract negotiations and actually just contracts, metrics that we can use, and those types of things. And everybody's worked together. I mean, it's been really, really good. So I think to answer that question, part of your question, absolutely. We're on the front end of a lot of this stuff, and I think that we just have to get started because it's not been here before.
Yeah. My other question, since you mentioned it a couple times, is about PD 360, and that's where the majority of your savings has been. And I think that was triggered from our hesitation to support it because there were only 41 users last year. And I think they kind of cut us a break for this year. I mean, is it
Well,
likely that break would continue?
Well, first, it was more than 41. It was
Wow.
actually about 400 and some users and everything. But the key is out of the total and how we were using it, and in fact, was it integrated with True North Logic the way it was supposed to be? There were a lot of different questions that we had to ask about, and that was something that we looked at, and that created a situation where we had some leverage against the company and say, hey, listen, you didn't do your half, and maybe we didn't do our half, but hey, you need to cut us a break here, and they did. And I think that was very positive for us. We saved a lot of money for a half a year anyway, and now we have to look at it for the next year, and hopefully that everybody together will be able to give you that kind of information.
Okay. All right. Thanks.
Kathleen, did you want to say something?
I just wanted to say that part of this is not just program evaluation, but it's program innovation. So when programs of significant impact, financial impact to the district are being proposed, one of our big initiatives is to make sure that we're not just looking at one alternative, that we're looking at several alternatives and which alternative would produce the best results for the least amount of money, looking at that return on investment.
Sure.
So yes,
All
from
right.
the front end is definitely what we're striving to do. Right now, we're having to work from the back end, but hopefully changing that culture and moving forward, everybody in the district will begin thinking like this so that they make sound decisions for future investments based on what is most cost effective and what is going to produce the best results.
And I would, what Dr. Gingras has talked about is right now we're working with Dr. Christensen about your request on the IB program. And we've had 2 meetings already. We have another scheduled this week, and we're hoping to get to something for you next month. We just move things around and put the things that are on the front burner. We're trying to do that, but we want to do a complete and thorough job, and we've had a learning curve. I'll admit I got sidetracked myself. There was always this question about, does VPK pay for itself? And my financial background just kind of got me off on the wrong track, and I went down a rabbit hole, but now I'm back on track. So
She'll keep you on track.
Yes. Yes, she does. So anyway, that's a little bit about what we've worked on. We've had a very good time getting this information. Everybody has worked with us very well. We have no unhappy people about us being here, and I think that's a good thing. And as Dr. Gingras has said, that the big thing is the culture. People, if you just call us, we'd be more than happy to give you our opinion. Everybody likes to talk and everybody likes to give opinions and everything, but we try to keep it directed, and I try to keep it, if I was a school board member, what would I want to know? And that's the basis from which we come.
And this is great, because this is the information we've been talking about for years, so.
I mean, if this is acceptable, this kind of information, and we hope to do this twice a year, so we're hoping to come back in probably December of this year with another update, and we'll have hopefully the information from the FSA that we can give you some concrete evidence of where we are and how we're doing, and I'm very hopeful for it. I think the process so far is working okay, but we just have a lot more to do, that's all.
I'm looking forward to seeing some of the results for next month, so that's great.
Any other comments? Thank you very much.
Okay.
Great presentation.
Thank you very much.
Yes, sir.
I'm sorry, I thought they were gonna, I thought we had a couple more pages. But overall question I've got is there were some pages in here where we had historical or current data, percentages, and others where we didn't see that. So,
Which one were you referring to?
yeah, I mean, there are some,
Like most
you
of
look
the,
at some pages and some of them go back as far as 2012 or 2013.
well, those are
with data.
baselines. That's all they are.
Sure. But then I look at, like page 13 and there's no baseline or I don't have any pre-existing data. So I guess it's tough for me to figure out what drove that goal, or where are we now in relation to the goal.
Well, and I would say when you look at this and you look at 214, 215, the year is not over. So really, there was no baseline data available for something like that, as opposed to something like, let's see, what was the other one? There was one in the teacher induction and coaching framework. There was the pilot year. There was the talent development pipeline. They had to know where they started from. So there was those types of things. But this first year is really the first year of the money that went forward with the instructional priority. So that's the reason why it's presented in this manner.
He's specifically asking about personalized learning, and that's
Person-
a brand-new initiative.
Well, not in particular to that one, but
Okay.
but there are other pages where I notice where the baseline starts at 2014-15 versus others. There's data for previous years.
And that was because they had to have it for, like, the talent development pipeline is a perfect example. In order to pay the money in January to the teachers and everything, they had to look at what was there in 13-14 in order to be able to do that. And so those years before now are basically pilot years, and I think we made an attempt to try and make sure that the information was consistent throughout the instructional priority from the strategic financial plan back when it was first introduced as well. So it's just a progression of where it is. And your first information really will be this year,
Okay.
the 14-15, because that's when the money was really initially put into the budget.
All right.
And Mark, your only two that have the 13-14 year was the teacher induction and coaching framework and the leadership advancement. And those are both pilot years. So that's why those are on
And
there.
I believe leadership advancement, we didn't, is that the
ELL
one we
had it
haven't
too.
done anything yet?
Right.
No money's been spent.
Answer your question?
But this should be able to give you the basis for all the instructional priorities. If you check with this first and then ask your questions or look, then you should really be on top of your game.
Awesome. Thank you very much.
Okay. Thank you. I'll make sure you get the color copies next time.
Dr. Moxley needs that, and so does Ms. Brandyberg.
We can email it.
I have one more.
Thank you very much. Thank you. The next item we have on our agenda is an update on personalized learning for teachers and leaders. This is one of our instructional priorities. We have Kathy Halbig leading the personalized learning for students, and we have some grant dollars associated with that. And then we have the personalized learning for teachers and leaders, and our two leaders in that arena, Andrea Pyatt and Kelly Cousineau, have come on board this year as a result of the IPD grant that we have. And so we asked for them to come and present. They work directly with Dr. Christensen, so I think Dr. Christensen is going to start this presentation.
Thank you, Dr. Moxley. Good afternoon, everyone. Chair Stivner, Superintendent Moxley, board members. Really excited to be here with you, especially coming off of that presentation. As we go into personalized learning, how do we know it's working? What are the metrics? And especially for this, what we want to talk about is teacher voice. We must have teacher voice in this work. And what's exciting about what you're about to hear about is over 90% of our high school and middle school teachers, about 1,100 teachers, gave anonymous feedback. It was a pretty robust survey, 45 minutes that they gave feedback, qualitative data that informs us. It's our baseline data. To your question earlier, Mr. Dodd, personalized learning for teachers and leaders is really a new initiative for us. So this is baseline data, and what they're going to go over with you is really reflective of last year, just so you know. Like this survey was given in October and November of 14, right, 2014. But as they took the survey, they were asked to think about the 13-14 year, okay, just to frame that up. And how do we celebrate and empower effective teaching is a big question, is a theme that you'll see. And how do we provide teachers and leaders with personalized learning that meets their needs? So those are just two themes that you'll see throughout, but I'm going to hand it over to our wonderful teacher leaders, Andrea Pyatt and Kelly Cousineau.
Hi, good afternoon, Dr. Moxley, Ms. Stivender, board members. I'm Andrea Pyatt, and we support the instructional priority of personalized learning for teachers and leaders. And that instructional priority is K-12. What we're going to share with you today are some brief findings. You should have a one-pager document. So we're going to share some brief findings with you that relate to the Innovative Professional Development Grant, which is 612. So we partner, under the Innovative Professional Development Grant, we partner with a research company called MDRC, and their research focuses on 3 questions. And that first question is, how is our professional learning system changing? So as we look at innovative professional development, we want to really look close at our professional learning system and how it's changing. So again, we're going back to 13-14, and we just wrapped up the 14-15 survey. So we're hoping to see some real significant evidence. So that first question, how is it changing? The second question is, how does this professional learning system influence patterns of participation by our teachers and our leaders? Okay, and then that last question is, how does this new system of learning influence their practice in the classroom and ultimately raise student achievement? Dr. Christensen mentioned that we did have an 84% participation rate, over 1,100 teachers surveyed for the 13-14. Yes, we were real pleased with that. Principals were also surveyed, and 18 of our principals were surveyed, and we had a 94% rate there. So principals took a survey, and then our teachers took a survey. Now, what we would like to point out to you is through our innovative professional development work, we're looking at 3 areas of focus, and that first area of focus deals with structure and collaborative time for teachers. And a lot of our teachers, as you can imagine, say that they don't get enough collaborative time. So going back to the 13-14 school year, our teachers and our principals voiced to us that they didn't get enough collaborative time. That structure was not in place. Now, there has been some significant change for the 14-15 school year that allowed that structure to be in place, okay? Secondly, 13-14 school year, our teachers weren't getting into other teachers' classrooms to learn from them so that they could improve their practice or that they could coach up their colleagues. Again, 13-14 school year, we're hoping that this year we have significantly changed some of those practices where teachers are getting in one another's classrooms. Lastly, we found that the more teachers participated in an activity, the more they found it useful. So, gee.
Common sense, right?
Yeah, I see you giggling, Miss Luke.
I'm just saying what she was thinking.
Yes, you said what she was thinking. So, again, we're hoping that we see a significant change. Now, to focus on content, I'm going to turn it over to Kelly.
Terrific. Thank you for having us today. Our second bucket that we focused on, the next set of questions, covered the content. These are the professional development activities that our teachers actually participate in. And as you can see by the first marker there, 88% of our teachers participate in some type of PLC or some collaborative structure at professional learning at their school, and of that 88%, 80%, so 4/5 of the teachers reported that that was effective. So I think that lays nice groundwork for things that are happening at the school site that maybe could use or could have used just a little bit of some tweaking there. A little bit shocking that while we have a very effective team evaluation in place, and a third of the teachers report that they recognize from their formal evaluation the ability to get professional development ideas or be sort of geared toward professional development they can participate in, only 11% reported that was being done. So I think the true question is, if we're hoping 100% of teachers are participating in professional development, how did the others find the professional development activities that they were in? How were they sort of geared toward that? And was it truly tailored to what they needed? Half of the principals and more than a third of the teachers said the priorities were something that was set by the district, that mandates that come sort of from the top down led them to participate in the activities that they were a part of, and less than a third of the teachers reported that the process of analyzing their student work led them to the professional development that they participate in. In addition, and you have a whole PowerPoint and everything that I know you have access to and maybe have reviewed already, but some of the really interesting points that we found is only 10% of the teachers strongly agreed that the professional development activities met their individual needs. So it kind of goes back to the point Dr. Christensen made and Andrea made about really focusing on what professional development is available to our teachers and who can identify what those needs are. And over the weekend, Dr. Vicki Phillips put a tweet out on Twitter. I am on social media, and she did an op-ed piece for Our Children magazine. And one of the pieces of that focus was really, she spoke very from a teacher perspective about the importance of putting trust in teachers. And how it's very crucial that we consider and really use the teacher voice to evaluate the professional learning opportunities that we offer within a school or within a district. And I found that really profound, because I think that is a lot of the work when we talk about teacher voice and teachers feeling empowered in leading that. Who knows better than teachers what it is that teachers need to really improve their instructional practice every day? So I'll leave you with that thought.
And lastly, in regard to feedback, and that's a perfect segue, is we do want to empower our effective teachers. We do want to bring them forward with us in this work. And we have a good percentage of our teachers actually saying that they are receiving feedback, and then our new and struggling students are receiving feedback as well. But what's that next step? What can we do with that feedback? We've got to put the structure and time in place, and we've also got to give them high-quality multi-access to professional learning. So once they get their feedback, we've got to let that drive their needs. One interesting takeaway, though, is what we found, or what was reported, was that last bullet, where 35% of our principals reported the difference in what they believe our teachers need versus what the teacher believes that they need. So going back to feedback, not only do we want the constructive feedback for new and struggling teachers, we want constructive feedback for all of our teachers, and we want constructive feedback for our work going forward. Where are the pieces that we can put in place to drive our learning for our teachers?
Just in summary, we actually gave this survey again in May to the same teachers. So almost every high school and middle school teacher and principal took this again in May. So we'll be able to compare. And by the way, when they took it in May, they were looking at 14, 15. So we're going to bring back to you the comparison data. So this is data. It actually took MDRC about 5 months to put this all together, and you can see that PowerPoint's pretty comprehensive. Didn't want to walk you through that today, but wanted to give you kind of a snapshot of it. But we're going to give this same survey again the following May and again the following May. So we'll actually have three years of data of, do teachers perceive that their needs are being met? Right now we're at 10%, 13, 14 year. It's got to change. That's got to go up, right? We look at some of these other key indicators of teacher perceptions. By the way, these are anonymous. We don't track it to a specific, so they can be very frank about what they feel. And we just wanted to let you know that we feel like this will really help us get better as we work through each of the aspects of personalizing learning.
Dr. Moxley?
I really want to thank the team for their outstanding work. This is a new initiative for us. We believe that professional development is at the heart of teaching and teaching practice, and it needs to be very organically developed from our teachers and moving forward, and not from a top-down type of approach. There are times when, as a district, there are things we need to look at as a district, but that should not be, it should not be all or none. It needs to be very customized for our teachers, and we really believe in that. And so some exciting work. I am glad to have this baseline data because it shows us where our starting point is. And we are very fortunate to have this partnership with MDRC. This is also funded by grant dollars, so for us to have the consultants to be able to come in and work with us, it's just a phenomenal opportunity for our teachers as we develop this, and it's bringing the leadership and the teacher practice in the classroom together at the same pace, so that the support system is being designed at the same rate that the teachers are having some changes in their teacher practice and the way they learn and the way they're developed and the customization of that. So the worst thing we can do is have our teachers really running ahead and not having a support system built in by our principals. They need to know the work as well, and they need to know it equally as well as our teachers so that they can support them in that manner. And I think we've had conversation about how frustrating it is for a teacher when that support isn't there. So that's critically important. So again, thank you to the team. Great work, and we look forward to more exciting updates.
Any comments? Yes,
This
ma'am.
and this goes back to the Dr. Green.
Gingras.
Thank you. That's in the Gringus, and that's not right. Gingras' presentation. So where it says 14-15, and I know you guys said that the percent of teachers that report professional development needs are met was 10% for 13-14. It says 30% on here, but that's our goal. Is that right? Okay. And you guys have worked with professional development and these schools to kind of evaluate the PD that they're doing so we can more customize it? Is it solely in the professional development department, or are you guys working in the schools also?
I'll go ahead and answer that first, and then you guys give your, we have some schools that have piloted a different approach to professional development where they're doing some job-embedded PD that's more focused on individual development in a collective environment within their PLC, using lesson study cycle and some other tools within the curriculum blueprints, within the standards, trying to get better at lesson planning, essentially. And so we believe the piloting that has occurred there will impact the percentage, because it's a different way of having professional learning, is more focusing on collaboration and job-embedded learning. But in the same vein, we're very much moving to an approach of direct teacher PL training. For example, in the area of math, especially K-5, they need direct training. They need direct training and help, and they've said that very clearly to us. So now we're providing that this summer. So I think over the course of time, we hope that you see those percentages, those kind of goals we set, that over time teachers will perceive that their needs are clearly being met, through a real change in approach.
And I see you're nodding your head, so I don't want to go on and on because clearly, what as Dr. Christensen is talking about is that job embedded piece. Because as teachers, for a long time, what we have considered to be our professional learning is I sign up for a course and I go here and sit there for the day and get that. But what we're really trying to do is rethink how that is done. So if I have an afternoon with my colleagues to collaborate, that is my professional learning. Learning from my peer, learning from that teacher that's 2 doors down who's doing fantastic things, and being able to share, lessons and talk about my student work and what are you doing in your classroom? I'm not getting those results. How can you help me? So really trying to shift that focus so it's not always I have to go there to get, but what we have talented people at every single school, and just being able to tap into my colleagues' expertise can really move my practice.
There were 2 research studies that were done on a national, well, one was on a national, the other one was done here in the state of Florida. One was done by Boston Consulting Group for the Gates Foundation on teacher perceptions of, it was really taking the coaching and mentoring model. and looking at that and how effective, and it dealt with teacher perceptions on that and principal perceptions on that. Pretty interesting results and very different perspectives on it, and what makes what do teachers want for greater professional development, because that was the whole impetus of it. And basically, in a nutshell, teachers were saying across the country, I don't want someone else coming into my classroom to tell me more compliance things and tell me what to do. I want somebody that can sit down with me, look at my student work, determine where I can improve upon this lesson and the delivery of that lesson, and how can I use my student work and the progress of my students to teach me and grow and change and develop my instructional practice and the art of teaching to get the greatest return on that time and investment. And so that study was very enlightening. That just came out several months ago, not that long ago. Then a second study was done by TNTP, and Andrea Pyatt, Lori Marshall, and Andrea Gogas, and I got to hear part of it. We actually, about a week and a half ago, 2 weeks ago, that research was rolled out. That was done here in Florida, and they took 4 school districts, and they looked at by surveying teachers and principals of their perception of the fidelity and the implementation of standards and the new Florida standards, and that they also went back and looked at student benchmarking of where students were in their proficiency of those standards. And there's kind of a gap in that because, it's kind of like, yes, I kind of what some of you have said is that people say, well, yes, that's a good idea. We need coaches, but I don't need coaching. Everybody else does, but I don't. It's kind of that same concept is I'm teaching the standards and I'm doing it with fidelity and to the greatest rigor, but others may not be. They're starting to align the outcomes and the student performances with the perceptions of how comfortable or how well versed. And again, that was done here in Florida, so it was done on Florida standards, and that report was given to us. That was very eye-opening, and actually I'm going to be sharing that report with our principals, because principals' perceptions were not too far off of that as well. And it was really looking at the purpose of evaluation, how evaluations and the meaningful feedback that is given to teachers aligns with the professional development. I mean, it's very, very good information, probably some of the best data points for us in designing this work. So again, if you'll remember, we have a goal with personalized learning for students by 2022 that we have that project base, like you saw here with Pine Ridge, and that whole personalized, that competency-based, all of that system to be developed and designed for use across our district by 2022. By 2017, though, we are to be situated for personalized learning for teachers and leaders, because you have to have that really in place to get the other pieces in place. So that's why this study for 3 years, and the work with MDRC, constantly giving those data points of where people see themselves is very important for us as we design this work, because it's going to be very fluid, and this is very important work. And we are actually one of the leaders in this work. So I commend these people for the hard work that they've done. And this has really been a work in progress along the way. So all this data is going to help us with our teachers designing the best system for them. And again, by the way, it supported that they don't want another event to go to. They want to be in their classroom with teachers coming in, working together, looking at, come watch me present this lesson, and then give me and then I'm going to come watch you present this lesson, and then we're going to look at our data points from our student work. And that's really what it's about. And the problem that we found, and I actually presented this to the commissioner, is that the way we quantify professional development is by going to an event and getting MIP points. Yep. And then with a survey that, the room environment, the temperature in the room was, good. They started on time, ended on time. Those kind of, it's not meaningful. Now we're coming back to a different way of doing business, and we've got to be able to capture that as being professional development, which we recognize, but the state needs to recognize it as well, so that we can have a way to give teachers credit for that professional development that is linked to their evaluation that can go up for their certificate renewal. And I actually will be starting tonight and the next 2 days at that PD Brain Trust think tank, and it's housed here in the state of Florida, and we have Florida State representation on the new work with the protocols. And the very things that we're talking about is how do we quantify and give teachers credit for a recertification piece on that. Long
Very good.
story around.
Can I ask one question?
Yes, sir.
This is being reviewed every May, you said, or that's when the survey's taken? It sounds like as exciting and where your baseline is starting, which is so low, is it reasonable that you might not try it like every 6 months? I mean, I don't know, is a year, you need a year, or would you want to see if you were
Well,
really?
you don't get the results for 5 months? Did I hear that? I mean,
Well, that was an original contract that was set up by Gates through MDRC, but we can do it more often. We could do a truncated version. Yeah, we could do a mid-year. And actually, the other thing we're looking at is K-5, because this MDRC was contracted for 6-12, because that's where the grant funds flow, but we still believe this is work that's this K-12 work. So we want to make it clear that this work's just not in high schools and middle schools. It's across the board. So we are going to we're surveying as well our K-5 group, but we can look at that. We'll look back at that. Maybe we could do a shorter version on a biannual basis just to get a better idea. The other thing we are going to do potentially in regards to non-instructional staff alongside this is how are non-load bearing staff helping you? And an anonymous survey to teachers on a quarterly basis around where do you see them, how are they helping you. That gives us some pretty good data as well on how those folks are on the ground, providing kind of an accountability framework for the way we work and support teachers.
and you will have the survey results back, you said in about 5 months.
Yeah, well, the first one was back in 5 months because they had to go through whatever process they go through. Evidently, they're able to turn it over a lot quicker from here on out.
That was your
So we're,
base, and now it's
yeah, that
faster.
was the
Yeah,
base.
They were setting up the system.
Yeah,
at the
they were
same
setting
time.
up the system.
See,
So
now it's the system
they're
set up.
telling us we'll be able to come back to you by August.
Okay,
That's
that'd be
good.
great, yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Thank
you
you
very
ladies.
much.
Thank you, Dr. Christensen.
Can we take I know we've only got one more thing, but can we take a
We actually have 2 more things, but yes.
5-minute break?
Mhm.
I know you want to get out of here, but
Thank
5
you.
minutes. Thank you. We're not going to be here till after 4, are we? Is that what you said?
Well, I just.